What is going on, everybody? I was almost at Happy Sunday, but I'll say Happy Saturday. Bobby Fi, my guy Jake Rohde. We're going to be talking through this 4-game divisional. I love this. I love we got the 2-day slates back. I'm in on it. I'm playing pretty big, and ready to get after it. Rohde, how you doing over there? And then any overall thoughts you want to get into?
Yeah, I feel opposite. I feel like I just like the 4-gamer. I don't know.
That's what I
like
mean. The 4-gamer, the multiple days. Like I mean, like you can adjust along the way.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you meant like you're playing the 2-gamer today, the 4-gamer, and the 2-gamer tomorrow.
Oh,
I'm sure
I am
you
playing the
said you're
2-gamer
playing
tomorrow.
big, so I didn't know, but I like the 4-gamer. There is a little showdown tonight and stuff like that you can get into too. So you got all the showdowns, you got the 2-gamers, the 4-gamers, so you can get going pretty big. I like the 4-gamer a lot today though. Yeah, but I like the multiple days and you can make adjustments tomorrow. It's just a fun setup for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously really for the most part, like really good and interesting games, like all right, KC,
Oh, yeah.
Houston, we've seen that before, but we haven't seen like Detroit and Washington. That's gonna be a lot of fun. The Rams and my Rams in Philadelphia in a situation where like no one's giving them a chance to win. I think it's a fun spot. And then obviously the headline by the Baltimore Buffalo game tomorrow night.
Yeah, that
So
Sunday night 6:30 game looks the Baltimore Buffalo ones.
that should be a good one.
Only one team can move on, and a lot of people talk up Lamar versus the Josh Allen stuff, so it goes down tomorrow then.
Yeah, no matter what, I just hope it doesn't turn into like if one of them has a bad game that guy sucks or something.
Yeah, they're both good quarterbacks in my opinion. I know you debate a lot more on those guys than I do, but
yeah,
I think they're both good. I know a lot of guys that around me love Josh Allen. They're like all about Josh Allen and Lamar. There's him with the good stats. Going too. So.
Yeah, and the thing is, I love Josh Allen. I think he's incredible. I think Lamar is like a generational, like people don't understand quite how good he is yet. And there was an old clip I was watching about Jordan. It was I think it was Jordan's 7th year or 8th year in the league in the NBA. He hadn't won a title yet. And it's like, oh, he just puts up stats and he can't win in the postseason. And look at his numbers go down and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, I feel like we're going to see the other side of that with Lamar in the near future. And for my hope, I guess it would be this year, considering I have them winning the Super Bowl. So. All right. What do you think about this? Any takes on the games and who you think is going to win? Any upsets?
Obviously, I mean, I think KC and Detroit get it done. I'm worried about your Rams because he's really cold in that game tomorrow.
Not Stafford's ideal situation.
Yeah, and he's like 1-9. I don't usually go by those stats, but I'm looking at it. That's why the total is bad there for the Rams. I think the Buffalo-Baltimore game is going to be pretty interesting. If you think about it, Lamar's got almost 1,000 yards rushing, and then Derrick Henry's over 2,000 just casually. They've run the ball for over 3,000 yards with that combo, and I think were you said in the Discord that they were just going to maybe run the ball, like break out Lamar and Henry and just run it a lot, or someone else was talking to me about it.
I don't know. I don't think it was me who said it, but it wouldn't surprise me. I am not going to let it affect my DFS play as much. Yeah. Like because I actually think that game's because of the perception and the weather and the pricing is going to be a little bit under-owned. So I actually that's one of my takes is to, and also I can always adjust along the way. Let's say I go perfect through the first game. Yeah, maybe I shift some of that ownership over to the more logical Detroit Washington game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into it. I'm gonna pull up my screen. We'll start talking about positions and where we're at. And look, I'm gonna rerun things after this, but I did a lot of adjusting and mix and matching and min exposures and adjusted per ownership and use sheets and Goldie's projections instead of Saber Sims. But we'll go position by position to start it off. And I don't have any quarterback that I'm not playing, but as you can see, I'm definitely the lowest on Stroud, lower on. I'm still still projected to be slightly above the field. I'd like to be above the field on both Hurts and Stafford, just because I really feel like the quarterback is maybe not going to dictate it unless it's Lamar or Josh Allen. But I do want to be ahead on the Lamar side, especially on that one. And then Jaden Daniels is what I'm getting the most of, which I'm going to guess is going to be the case for most people. I'm a little under on Goff. I guess it's my biggest one I'm under on. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably about the same. I don't know. This is a tough. I haven't built my 2 big lineups today.
Mm-hmm.
I like the pricing on some of these cheaper quarterbacks like Stroud at 5K. The Nico combo. But Jared Goff's good at 6,300. I don't mind him. I think they're going to be chucking it today a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Jaden Daniels. I like Lamar over Jaden Daniels, I think, this week with the lower ownership. Like, you're saying that game is a little bit lower owned.
Hmm.
you know, and Lamar does feel good lower owned a lot, you know, and there's some cheap weapons to throw it to for him if you want to pair him with Bateman or Likely's 3,500, you know, Andrews 4,500. I like those pairings.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, those are good options. I really struggle at quarterback. I think I'm going to build backwards this week. I think I'm going to start with some of the guys I want in my lineup, which we'll get to at running back and receiver, and then I'll
Hmm.
kind of see which one fits best on that stack. If I can pay up and get a Lamar likely combo, and then or something like that in
Absolutely.
that same one.
Yeah, and it depends on what you're trying to do. We'll get into it at running back. There's a lot of good running back options on
I
this slate, to
know.
say the least. But if you wanted to do the Gibbs, Henry, Barkley thing,
I haven't
you
even tried that
probably are
yet.
going to be wanting to use one of these cheaper quarterbacks.
Yep.
And well, again, I'm not in love with Stroud today. I'll take my slightly over the field stance on him. I'm under on Mahomes, which does worry me a little bit because he's in sort of like a price tier where I probably should have it. But I just feel like there's so much advantages to late swapping and things like that that uh, I don't know. And I feel like there's a lot of ways they can beat the Texans, like 20, 14 or 20 to 10 or something like that. I just feel like that game might let down. And by the way, with all the other weather stuff that we've heard, Kansas City's the only game that has any kind of like wind. And it's not that much wind, but it's worth noting that it's got like 15-mile-an-hour gusts and things like that. Other games don't really seem to have much going in the way of wind. All
Yeah,
right.
for what it's worth, too, that KC game's like mid-20s for degree, like low to mid-20s. The
Yeah.
temperature too, with 10-mile-an-hour winds, maybe some gusts over 20 on the weather report that I got here. So
Yeah. And all these games are going to be cold and
cold, yeah, they're
except
all
for the dome
cold
game.
except the dome game.
Like we all know that if this was a 12-game regular season slate or even a 15-gamer, I think we'd focus in on Washington and Detroit. So it's going to be so popular that I think that
So
just trying to do anything a little bit different is probably not a bad idea.
for sure.
All right, let's talk about running backs, Rody. What are you getting to? What do you like the most? Where do you sort of stand with some of these? Because the one guy I'm like, it's Saberson really wants to give me overweight on Joe Mixon. I get it, slightly priced down from the other guys, going to be one of the lowest owned running backs. I think Gibson and I think Cook and Mixon are both very interesting. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the price is at 6.5 and 6.7 for those guys are why you're going to get a little bit of them. They project decent. They get a lot of work. Houston will still run the ball, even though they come out and they play action and they hit 3 passes and they're down inside the red zone. And then the next drive they come out, run it, punt. And it's like you were moving the ball, passing it, but then you just still want to hand it off to Joe Mixon.
Mm-hmm.
So they're gonna give it to Joe Mixon, and he's a little bit owned, but I mean he's gonna get the work. He could break one, get a screen pass. I mean my favorite one's probably gonna be Gibbs. I know he's chalky. I know out of the 3 big ones, you got Barkley, Gibbs, and Henry. I think I'm gonna lean more Gibbs. I haven't really got to Montgomery yet. I don't know about that situation. He's so cheap.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to play him a little bit, throw him in a couple lineups here, just because he's cheap. But I don't know if they're gonna really fully give him the workload. I mean, Gibbs has looked so good, and just keep running with what's working right now and save money if they can, if they're up in this game.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're down and Gibbs needs a break, yeah, he'll get some reps, I think. So he's cheap. I like him. I kind of like your boy Kyron today too, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't so owned, but I guess these guys are all kind of gonna be kind of own these main guys. I mean, if you want to get different, you're gonna have to play like maybe a little Pacheco or something along those lines, which I don't mind. Pacheco 5.5. I think they're going to use him a little bit more. He's their best runner. I know Hunt's been getting a lot of work, but I mean, Pacheco does come in really well. They've been saving him the last few weeks, I think, coming off that injury. And if you think that Baltimore is going to be down, you got the Justice Hill play. I know these are great showdown plays too.
Mm-hmm.
But Justin Hill getting a lot of dump off balls, if they're down to the Bills. He's low owned, you could use. But that's really about what I'm going to use. I'm going to use these main running backs and then maybe sprinkle in a couple of these other guys that I like. I'm not really on the Washington running backs. I think if they get down, they're going to have to be throwing the ball. Maybe Jane Daniels gets more running the ball, rush, and then then they're going to be chucking it as well. So
Yeah, I just made a note because I definitely want to be over the weight on Eckler personally.
yeah, he does catch passes when they're
It's just a
down.
pass catching ability,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
next thing you know, he gets 10 points on a drive or something like that. You know what I mean? Just from 5 catches.
yeah. And he's low owned too. He should be lower owned.
Yeah, he is, and it is an interesting conversation. I just made another adjustment because I did actually all my hand builds have Derrick Henry in them, but I did not get to as much of the field. I just made a note to make sure I have it. I want to be at least with the field with him. Henry and Barkley and Gibbs. I just feel like I want to. It sounds crazy, but like those are I want to do my best to get two of those three in most of my lineups. And where I'm getting different would be guys like Eckler, would be guys like Joe Mixon. I'm not going to end up with as much Kyron as I currently have. I just don't love running backs against the Eagles. I think that's going to be tough for them to deal with that pass rush. We'll get into how I think the Rams are, what they're going to do in a minute. But yeah, I again, and then Montgomery, I'm happy to be. I just want to be underweight. If he's going to really be 25% owned, I sort of have a suspicion that he won't be. And for those who are playing on FanDuel, Montgomery is 4K on FanDuel. You kind of have to play him, or at least you have to have some exposure, or you're taking a huge stance by not playing him because it's 4K for a running back. That's like a free square. It's really hard to avoid that because, even if he just squeaks into the end zone once or something, that's good enough to probably, get you close to there anyway. But yeah, that's sort of where I'm at. And you can see my current exposure, but it's going to change. You're going to see Derrick Henry right under Jahmyr Gibbs by the time we're done. That's what I like anyway. All right, let's talk about wide receivers. And just so everybody knows, it says my exposures, but it's not counting the flex. So it's not actually my full true exposure for what it's worth. So don't assume that, like, you might see, Henry at 11% at running back. That's because he's in 15% of my lineups in the flex, so it's a little tricky. All right, talking about wide receiver, you can see what I've got. I'm okay with I'm good with eating the McLaurin chalk. I actually think I'm going to end up with a lot more Puka than I currently have. What are you finding at receiver? And I guess we could sort of talk about ways to get different because there are some really good receivers who are very cheap because of perception and weather.
Yeah, receivers is a tough one. You can go with a lot of guys today and tomorrow, I gotta say. But yeah, Puka's projecting to be the best for me. Obviously owned. I like Nico Collins still a lot. I know he did well last game. He's just the guy they're going to throw the ball to. They ain't got really any other weapons. They're going to be down, I think, in that game. I think they're going to be throwing it late, and he's going to rack up the receptions. I know they do decent against that position, though. KC defense is tough. But I like him a lot. You got Terry in that game. I like him a lot. One of my favorite guys today, though, I think Jameson Williams gets involved big today at 6,100. I really like that price tag on him today, and he's getting a lot less owned. I mean, St. Brown is at 40. I'm seeing over 40% owned. I think JMO comes in a lot less than that. I think he could bust a big play. He's got big play upside, and I think he can bust a big one. I think one of the guys you were talking about that was cheap that you probably like in that first game, Xavier Worthy's been getting a lot of work.
Yeah.
I think 5,200 is a good price tag for him. He's mid owned to 25, 35%. He'll come in. I think he's pretty good priced out. Then you got Bateman at 4,900 is getting a lot of work for Baltimore. If you want that Lamar stack and he's affordable, he's actually quite low owned. You got Hollywood Brown at 4,200 in that game. If you think Mahomes gets it going, he's got a lot of cheap weapons. Mahomes. I mean, what is Hopkins too? I know I just worry about
Hopkins is cheap.
4,700. So all their guys are around 4.2, 5.2, and 4.7. You just don't worry about them spreading the ball around too much. I kind of want to stick with Worthy. I think he's my favorite. I'm kind of staying off the other guys. I'm going to keep Worthy at 5,200. Cooper Kupp's cheap if you think he gets back into being the reception magnet at 5,400. If you want to play that cheap Stafford stack, he works good with him, Higbee, and Stafford. Then you can get those three running backs that Bobby was talking about jamming in or something like that. But you got some other guys yet still from Houston, like John Mechie at 3,800. He's getting a lot of work. Obviously, they don't really have anybody. They're targeting him quite a bit. He's getting a little bit more owned, but it's still not bad. I know Hutchinson's there at 3,200 in the same Houston. He's got big play upside, deep ball, but I mean he's not getting the work like Mechie is in that first game. If you want to target that, and then maybe one other cheap guy. I've been looking for like a 3K guy. You do got Crowder there at 3,200 that Washington game, but my favorite 3K guy would probably be Tylan Wallace for Baltimore. He should be the guy to get some work. I mean, he didn't look very good last week, but if they are throwing the ball a little bit, he could get some work. But I mean, these are just shots you take if you are trying to jam those running backs in. I'll let Bobby get some other plays. I didn't say like Shakir. I didn't say some of these other guys. Maybe he's got Zacchaeus or something, 4,300 or something. I'll let him get some takes
Yeah,
in.
yeah, I'll jump into it. Like, I do think that McLaurin and Puka are staples. Like, they're going to be in. Again, remember the flex is different also. So Nakua is going to end up in 40+% of my lineups. Terry McLaurin is going to end up in probably around 40% of my lineups. But I thought about the fading Shakir thing as like a strong take, and I just couldn't come up with why I needed to do that just at his price. But you did mention there's another, like the group of Worthy and Brown, and then Mechie on the cheaper end from the earlier game. I do think that's kind of interesting, and it does allow you to some flexibility. I also think that the better thing to do those, like, I don't want to play a couple of 30 some odd hundred receivers. I'd rather play tight ends in the flex than the receivers, unless I was depending on the type of build. So like I don't want to necessarily try to end up with Mechie and Hollywood Brown, because I do think that the tight ends in that price group are going to outscore those guys most of the time here. That's just one thing I wanted to add. Well ahead on Jamison Williams. I'm going to be well ahead on AJ Brown, just because literally no ownership. I'll take my shots. You know what I mean? If the Rams stack the box and try to stop Saquon after he ran for 255 yards against us last time, it's going to open up some of AJ Brown, some of Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. So AJ Brown, you can see he's projected to be 5% owned. I've got him at 18% right now, so I'm just ahead of the field. And that, again, it's probably a little higher than that. That's just counting where I have him at receiver. Rashad Bateman, I'll probably end up slightly above the field. Cooper Kupp will end up above the field, which doesn't take much because no one's playing him. And it depends on really what Philly wants to do. Keys on. I'm kind of curious about that. And what I like about these playing these later things is I can always adjust my decisions later on what I want to do there. But between Zacchaeus and De'Ami Brown, I prefer De'Ami Brown by a pretty good amount. But I was surprised in my builds that I didn't get to more of him. I have like one lineup with the Wallace. I have no problem with it. I just think it's very speculative, and I don't think you're going to see him out there running a ton of routes. In my opinion, Isaiah Likely becomes like a wide receiver. He lines up as a wide receiver basically with the way they do things now when they're on passing downs, and they'll use Andrews a ton, and then obviously they'll use Bateman. But I was surprised that with Zay Flowers officially out, that the spread didn't change at all, because I actually think the Zay Flowers thing is a big deal, and I am worried about that for the Ravens, because he is sort of like a game breaker. The thing that I would encourage people to do is to not ignore, especially on Showdown or especially tomorrow's slate and the one on the 2-gamer. I would try to get a little bit overweight on Amari Cooper, Matt Collins, and Keon Coleman, but especially Amari Cooper and Keon Coleman. I just think that there's plenty of room to have upside. We've seen Baltimore's defense has really improved the second half of the season, but they still occasionally will give up a big play here and there. And I just don't know that Buffalo is going to be able to get through with. I mean, Josh Allen just throwing to backup running backs and you know what I mean, like and just running the ball. Like I think that it's going to be tough for them. So I do expect somebody not named Shakir to be involved for them. Right now, if you had to ask me, I would probably say Cooper, but it's pretty close between he and Keon Johnson. So that's a note I have to add a little bit more of those guys. But with that stuff said, we can move on to tight end, because I do think it's 3 running backs in a lot of lineups, and it's 2 tight ends for me in a lot of lineups. I don't know if you're finding the same thing, but I certainly am. And let me just see my likely exposure, because this can't be right. I know I have a lot more likely than it says. Yeah, I've got 45% likely, but I go to my tight end, and I've only got him as a tight end in 8%. So I am using a ton of double tight end lineups today.
Yeah.
How about you? What do you think about?
I was going to mention that. I was giving you some options for dumpster dives earlier. With those cheap plays, but really, I'm getting a lot of cheaper tight ends as well. You got Goddard even at 3,900. Schultz is actually in a good tight end matchup against KC at 3,300. I don't mind getting a little bit of him. He's decently. I mean, they're all about the same own. Goddard, Schultz, Kincaid at 3,700, Likely at 3,500. You're right. I really do like the double tight end. Instead of using one of those cheap receivers, I'll probably have one of those guys in my flex spot. Or even like the Lamar Likely Kincaid combo. I run in a lot of Kincaid back with Lamar stacks, trying to get other guys that I want in the lineup, get into Gibbs and get into Nico and get into, Jamison Williams, some of those guys we want. So I definitely like your idea there, and then Andrews at 4,500 is cheap too, lower owned even than Likely. He's been getting a lot of work from Lamar. I like the Lamar Andrews combo as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think Sam Laporta at 4,200 is a great price as well. He actually projects a little bit better than Kelsey. I know Kelsey's down, but I mean it's playoff time now, and usually they start to dial some things up for Kelsey today.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that factors in, but I definitely want a little bit of Kelsey as well. I'm really mixing it up with those guys. I didn't even mention Higbee at 3,400. Another guy like those are every guy I mentioned. I'm going to have in a lineup. I've already built lineup. I did a QB, receiver, tight end build for every team, so I've built every one of those guys in a lineup.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the MME and the $25, I tried to build one with every QB tight end. So I really like all of them today because they're cheap. So hopefully one goes off or a couple will go off, and then you just got to get the right other pieces right in their lineup.
Right. And as I was mentioning, like if I look at my tight ends here, it looks like I'm not playing that many, whatever. I'm just sort of spread out. Then you go to my flex and it's all tight ends.
Yeah. So both your spot tight end and flex are loaded with tight ends, so that your percent's going back, and likely is huge in your flex.
Yeah.
38%.
And Andrews, so combined with likely and Andrews, likely I have overall 40-something%, and I have Andrews around what I have Andrews 35. Yeah, so 34. That's I guess is like what I'm building towards, because I do think that and also tight ends in the cold in the postseason, we always see these big games. And plenty of opportunity for it. If you just ran nothing early on when I was just trying to use the Sabersim builds, I ran so many builds this week, but they really wanted me to play Dalton Schultz like in every lineup. I have no issue with it. My favorites are Laporta, Andrews, likely, and Kelsey. And Higbee. Higbee at low ownership. By the way, I mean, did anybody watch the first quarter of that last game against Minnesota? Higbee had 5 catches and 56 yards, and then he got hurt in the first quarter. He's going to be the escape valve if they can get pressure on Stafford, and I think that's a huge opportunity for him. Not to mention he's a playmaker who can actually run some routes too. So I feel like Higbee has a chance to somehow be the highest scoring player, like the highest scoring tight end, and no one's really playing him much. So I thought that was really interesting. All right, let's talk about some defenses. It's I'm spread out a little bit here. I actually am going to end up with much more of the Baltimore defense than I currently have right now. And I am going to probably end up higher on the Chiefs than anyone else. But I also like the idea of getting to the Texans as the cheap one. Having a hard time talking myself into the Commanders. Their defenses look good, but it's just so hard against Detroit. Like, they're going to give up a ton of points no matter what. So you're really just relying on sacks and some sort of weird play or touchdown or something. So I had a little bit of harder time with them. I could talk myself and sell myself a story on the Houston defense, who also had looked incredible in the last game against San Diego. What are you doing at defense, and what do you like the most?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to chase that, the 24-point defensive score by Texans last week. Obviously, they were the one you needed, and I didn't have enough of them either last week. But I just think their 2,500 price fits well with what I built today. I did spread it around a little bit. I got some Bills. I even grabbed some Ravens at 2,900. I don't mind. Texans, I like at 2,500. Got some Lions at 3,200. Grabbed some Chiefs at 3,600. I like that a lot. Those are kind of my main ones. I did play a couple Eagles ones. The weather's going to be cold there a little bit too, so anything can happen there. They can, these weather games outside, I don't mind getting the defense too. I did only play the Lions a little bit, like I did Jameer and Lions a little bit, and then I like that combo a little bit. And then I don't have any Commanders. I get it at 2,300. That is a cheap option. I'd rather just play the Texans on the outside weather. There's wind. Mahomes could throw a pick, fumble the ball, someone could drop it. Take my shots on those outside games more than the indoor game. So that's kind of what I'm doing. But I'm still mixing a match. But Texans are my favorite.
Yeah, and I think even with the indoor and outdoor, I do think that Detroit has tremendous upside because, like, if their pass rush is anything like what we saw the last week, now it's hard to know because the Rams did the exact same thing to Minnesota that the Lions did the last week of the season. So it's really, but if they can come out like that, and Jaden Daniels is going to have to take a sack or two at some point. I really think that it is kind of wild to see that spread being so. I know you knew it would be high, but like I think Jaden Daniels is really, really good, and maybe he has a bad day today, but. I've just been really, really amazed. Do you see that? Like, one thing that's crazy to me about him, he had like I think is it 6 or 7 of their wins this year were on the last possession of the game. Like that's bizarre.
Yeah.
That's
I
like
see that.
insane. You never see that kind of stuff for anybody, much less and if they did, you'd think it'd be a team that won like 15 games or something, but no.
Yeah.
It's like most of their wins.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see that spread that big too, because Detroit has struggled against mobile quarterbacks this year. Josh Allen did score a lot of points on him, running around a little bit too. So, I'm from Michigan, so that game's hyped. Everyone's talking about it. Lions hype. My cousin actually plays for Washington. Andrew Wiley, you'll see him at right guard.
All of my Michigan crew is like in California right now, and they literally write me during the whole games. But like, it's Kenny obviously, like who works with us. But it's his birthday. We're doing a big party for him on his rooftop tonight.
Nice.
But it's going to be during the Lions game, and we had a buddy fly in. I didn't even know he was flying in. He wrote it like 3 a.m. He's like, I'm on my way. I'm coming to the party. But I'm like, dude. And he's like, it's like everybody's trying to get into Detroit right now for once, and now he's the one trying to go to California where all the fires are. Like, he's like, what's going on here? I just thought it was funny. We both have you obviously are there, but like I have all the a huge portion of my friend group are Michigan State guys. So
yeah,
I just I grew up with a lot of them. They're good kids. All right. So I'm going to go quickly and just say a couple of takes on the games. I think that Houston covers, KC wins. I think that the Lions either are going to win by 40 or it's going to be down to I really think the Lions are going to win by a lot. I actually do feel fairly confident in them. I'm a little worried to go against my Jaden Daniels love, but that's where I'm at. Just because I'm a homer, I'm going to take the Rams in an upset, even though, again, I think this is the worst matchup in football for them. But I don't think the Eagles have looked crisp at all. So I'm okay with taking a little gamble on the Rams. And I think Baltimore beats Buffalo as long as the officials don't get too much in the way. I mean, we talk a lot about KC getting calls, but nobody gets calls like Buffalo gets calls. I'm telling you, Josh Daniels is having a buddy. I love Josh Daniels. I think he's Josh Allen. I mean, Josh Allen is so good, but they get like every call. Even in that last game against Denver, I was like, "Are you guys serious?" Like they're changing calls that like aren't even in the rules. And by the way, my Rams got some calls on Monday as well, so I can't say it's all this side, but I do think that the officials do worry me because I think the league has a very strong want for Buffalo to play KC in the rematch of the AFC title game and then all that stuff.
I don't know, Bobby. I know you said that, but did you see that thing about the officials for the game for that game?
No.
How it favors so much for Buffalo. Man, I gotta find that. I'll put it in our Discord in a minute once I find it. But man, like the least amount of teams that call false starts or something for Buffalo is reffing the game, and Buffalo leads the league in false starts or something.
Oh, jeez.
So like it's crazy. Like a ton of these little weird rules. I gotta find it here. I'll put it in the chat. It's a link to Twitter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll put it in the chat. Yeah. Home underdogs, the Bills, like it's got against the spread. It's got everything in this little article. It's pretty crazy.
Oh, interesting. And I do have a couple of hot takes, even though they're not necessarily coinciding with my current builds at the moment. I love Jamison Williams to be the highest scoring receiver on the Detroit side. I love Cooper Kupp to catch at least one touchdown. I like Tyler Higbee to have over 15 fantasy points. And these are all numbers that I'm just sort of making up, what they mean. And I think, I think the winning millionaire, whatever, for the $20 is going to have more focus from Sunday than it's going to from Saturday. That's just my take. All right, Rody, anything else before we get out of here? I did upload for each slate, I uploaded all of my exposures for everything so far. I'll update my Sunday ones before tomorrow. But I got everything in there. Anything else you want to add, Rody?
Yeah, I just put that article in there from Twitter on X, whatever you call it, in our Discord. So guys, get in there, check that out. It's a big article on the ref crews for actually some of the other playoff games are on there too. So yeah, I mean, you took my JMO take. I really like him today. His price is great. I just put him in a lot of lineups. I like your call from the Sunday night game. I haven't built my 5-5-5 for the 4-gamer yet. I'm going to do that here next. And yeah, I don't know, man. It's going to be tough. I like a lot of these players today. This is going to be some good football. I hope you guys enjoy it. I like Bobby's calls. With
Please
the game.
remember to late swap also. That's another good reminder we should tell
Yep,
people.
good reminder. Look through your lineups after the games. Each game's finished, and then see if you can make some pivots. Look for games that I had a lot last week where I had Lad McConkey, Nico Collins, Derrick Henry. I got 3 awesome players. I'm like, what do I do with these lineups? So like trying to mix them in. I did finish 16th in the 5-5-5 last week. I wish Herbert would have threw one to DJ Shark, but DJ Shark did drop 2 balls. He had played awful, and Herbert played awful.
Oh, you could have so easily snuck it in like a garbage time one or something.
Yeah, I mean, I needed a garbage TD. That would have been awesome for my Herbert stack that made it to 16th.
Oh man.
So yeah, so that was just brutal. But Hawkinson did good. I left him in there for that game. I wish Barkley would have did good. He only had 17, but everyone else failed, so I got to stay up there. So hopefully this week I can take the 5-5-5 down for $1 million because it's a bigger one.
Hopefully, if you don't, I do, and one of the true DFSers do. If
one of us take it down. Yeah,
or Sheets too. We got to throw Sheets in the mix.
Yeah, Sheets is around.
Yeah, he's won plenty. He wins plenty.
He's good.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks so much for joining me, guys. Good luck to everybody today. Rody, go ahead and take us on out of here.
Yeah, just when I say my thing, just don't hit the end stream right away. Just let it. Yep. It's got some delay. I'll hit the end stream button. You're good to leave. All right, guys. Good luck, and let's get it.